Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing good on your end. I was asked to give memories of me and Joey as we were growing up and a lot of things that went on. I can remember some of the earlier years. I can remember we having the little green army guys and taking those guys and setting them out on dirt hills and taking either rubber bands or taking BB guns or whatever we could probably get our hands on at the time, and having little army wars, trying to knock the other guys, his little army guys out. Any way you could find them or shoot them or do whatever you could with them. But through the years, there was a lot of things as we grew up that I can remember. A lot of basketball for some reason. That must have been the only sport they had back then. Between that and football, I remember a lot of Sunday football, but the basketball was probably what sticks in my memory the most. I remember going up in the barn, either Uncle Horace's or Uncle Darwin's, either way. And a lot of those times we would spend with a lot of guys from the church and a lot of the teens that we hung around with, and it was just a lot of good people, a lot of good fun. I can remember times that we went skiing. There was a lot of ski trips that we took as younger people, and those were very enjoyable times. I can remember one of the things is probably they won't remember it now, but I can remember it at Joey's parents' house having haunted houses in the old barn and the old shop of Uncle Roland's, and having the hay rides and stuff. And that was back in those days. That was pretty fun as a little kid. Between our parents and Joey's parents getting together and putting all that together, and for the church groups and teenagers and stuff, that was pretty fun. I remember as we got older, I remember getting our license and taking truck bodies or gooseneck trailers or whatever and building tents out of them and going down to camp at Trap Pond at the Cypress Point, and having the weekend camps. And one of the things there was, hooking them up and the electric or putting lights in them or whatever we did at the time, and then also having water balloon fights. I remember stashing water balloons and them being confiscated, and we had to see if we could find more water balloons, and having water balloon fights at nights or on the Sundays or whatever it may be. But no matter what it was there was always a lot of fun, always a lot of good people around. I know we've lost some of them, and some of them we don't get to talk to anymore. But I don't see Joey as much as I used to, but I still get to see him usually once or so a year during the pumpkin season. So that's always good. But either way, hope everything goes good. Hope everybody's good in your family. Have a good holiday. Have a good birthday. See you later.
Hey, Joe, you remember this? Boy got killed like that. That's right. So, Julie, as you look in the background here and you see that glowing light back there, there's a cat running up to me. Hi, cat. I know you're thinking of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but that's not what I think of. When I see a bright light like this, I often think back to the day that Joe said, Mark, I just got this brand new light that I can plug into my lighter in my car. Man, it is the most powerful light that you can possibly get. It shines like 18,000 miles. And so we decided to put this thing to the test one night in the Delmar High School parking lot after a football game. And there was some guy, a blonde-haired guy, and he was with Kevin Smith, affectionately known as Shiny Forehead. For reasons, if you ever saw Kevin's head, you would know that he had a big, shiny, giant forehead. But anyway, his buddy, blonde hair, I can't remember the guy's name, but they were a year ahead of us. And I think they had imbibed drink. And so they were eliminating some beverage in the corner by the old Delmar gym. Joe liked gizmos, and we had not only the light, but we had some sort of a megaphone. And so we drove by real slow. There's 1,000 people in the parking lot. He's in the dark corner, so we shine this massive light upon him while he is taking care of business. And at the top of my lungs, I yelled, "Hi, everybody, look at so-and-so and look at what he's doing." And then we took off flying, and they chased us down and pulled me through the window, and were going to beat me up until they found out who it was. So Joe Pepper almost got me killed by a guy named Shiny Forehead. That's my memory. This is what I think of when I see the warm, glowing light.
Hey Joey, this is Robert. Haven't been talking with you much lately. Let's see, a memory. One of my fondest memories hanging out with you at Clemson was playing canasta, and you had a reputation for accumulating a lot of cards in your hand so that you could go out concealed. You did that quite a few times. And let's see, also you and I would commute back to Maryland. I think we did that at least twice. Once I got a speeding ticket because we were cruising along at night along with the tractor trailers. I was going their speed, and a policeman, I guess, thought, oh, he's easy, and got me right there at the Peach Water Tower. And then the other time, you and I had another passenger from Clemson that we dropped off over on the west side of Washington, D.C., I think, and then coming down Route 50 towards Salisbury, it started to snow quite a lot, and it was tough going. But anyway, have a happy birthday, Joey, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Joe Pepper, happy 50th birthday. It's Louis Magus, your friend, office mate, and math colleague back in our days at Clemson University. Such great times. Best of luck at the start of your next half century.
Joseph Pepper, Joseph Allen Pepper. This is Daryl. You had to be, Joe, one of the friendliest guys in all of Clemson. You were on the top 100 list of who's who, the friendliest people at Clemson. On top of that, you were much smarter in all things mathematics than me. On top of that, you were willing to drop anything that you were doing, that you were working on, in order to help out someone else. And on top of that, you were a good brother in Christ, living out your faith first. I think my humorous memory of you would be that you gave John Gaines and myself the 2 bedrooms in our apartment. Again, you were the gracious giver, and set up your bed in that tiny little area in that downstairs kind of nook there of our apartment. So, blessings to you, Joe. Would love to catch up with you more, but have a great birthday.
So Julie, I've looked long and hard for this particular house, not just this house, but if you notice, the address is 324. That's a number that is significant in the life of my friendship with Big Daddy Joe Pepper, because in homeroom one day he goes, "You know, Mark," he goes, "square root of 324 is 18. I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, 17 squared is 289. So he says, "You know how I figured that out?" He says, if you take 17 squared, it's 289, and then you add 17 and 18, you get 324. And you can do the same thing if you want to know 19 squared. You just take 324 and so forth. So that was interesting. He said, "You know, Mark, you'll never need to know this. You will never need to know this." So about 1 week later, 10th grade, we're in Mr. Chrisman's class, and he says, "Anybody know the square root of 324? And I raised my hand and yelled, 18. And he looked at me with that look of hatred that he often looked at me, glaring, wanting me to die on the spot, I'm sure. He looked for a calculator, somebody found one, and I was vindicated. So, forever and ever, 324 has been my lifelong companion. And it's because of Joe Pepper.
Hi there, Joe. Happy birthday. Now that that's out of the way, got a few funny stories, or at least some remembrances. Basically, I've known Joe since maybe 1994, 1995. I've seen him at 2 different places, so he's come a long way. I'm very proud of you, Joe. You got a great family, great wife, everything. And the the things I remember most is, or maybe a few things, are when you'd come over to game night or just to pop in for a minute or two, you'd always bring maybe some donuts or some food or something to that effect, and you'd always been to a donut shop or a grocery store and where you got them, the items for dirt cheap. So to me, that was very funny. You're very frugal, but you believe in buying quality and having quality things. So I can understand that and appreciate that. But the most funny story is probably when you were rooming with Derek, you had the thermostat set probably at 68, and I think I turned it to about 75, 78, and you came to Derek. Of course, he was your roommate, so you pretty well blamed him, and you said, D, uh, D, did you, did, did you, did you touch the thermostat? So I'll always remember that. Happy birthday, Joe.
You know, Julie, standing in front of this Soil and Water Conservation District wetland soil sign, sponsored by the Kosciuszko County Soil and Water Conservation District, Grace College, and the Center for Lakes and Streams, reminds me of the time that Joe and I snuck out of class. I think it was chemistry class. We went over to Mrs. Wood's class and listened in, and we remembered this statement: compounds form strict ratios. Go ahead and finish it, Joe. But the amounts of substances in a mixture may vary. I have no idea why I remember that. I don't even know what it means, but that's a memory.
Hey Joe, it's Dave. I would like to wish you a very happy 50th birthday. I am so glad it's you and not me, because you are old. Really, really old. And I'm not quite there yet. Do you remember playing basketball after work? We played some, and there was a gentleman named Herb McMillan who was older, probably in his 50s, come out and play with us occasionally. And he was much better than I was, and even at the time, and probably in better shape. He's probably still in better shape and could beat me today, and he's probably, what, pushing 80? But I remember thinking, and he seemed so old at the time, and now here we are, knocking on the same door. Doesn't feel as old as it used to seem to be. When Julie asked me to do this, I wanted to give it some thought. I was really afraid that I would say something, tell a story that's inappropriate. One of our, stories would be embarrassing. Some of the kids shouldn't hear, rated R, because, we were in our 20s, we were adventurous, young men, and I gave it a lot of thought, and then I realized who I was talking about. It was you and I, and we pretty much didn't do anything that wasn't G-rated. Unless you count some of those pretty crazy auctions we went to, those things got wild. I remember getting in a heated bidding war over wheelbarrow. So, that was pretty crazy. I remember, so I was down there for like 5 years, right? I remember spending maybe 3 of those driving around with you looking for the Clinton prosperity signs that point in different directions. It was really more like an afternoon, but it seemed so much longer. We realized, I think, that those signs were getting stolen and that they were hard to find. I also remember spending time, we'd see old houses, small houses, and talk about renovating them, and not together, because that would be kind of weird, but I never bought anything like that and renovated it, but you did, and I remember watching you go through that process, and you did it right. You would spend a lot of hours and days and hard days doing that, and I remember never helping you do any of it, which was probably the right call for the quality of work that you wanted to get done. But I did and do respect you for going through that process. That was something that I admire. I remember you gave me a sofa, and it was broken down in the center like that. Two outside things were fine, but the center was broken down. And you offered me a chair that didn't have a cushion because it had blown off during one of its trips, I guess. And I remember telling Christy that when we could afford to buy better furniture, I was going to drag that couch out into the backyard and set it on fire because I'm kind of a redneck. And then, of course, our house did get on fire. I didn't do it. My wife may have, accidentally. And I remember going around the back of the house with the fireman guy, and he's showing me the damage, and I see this couch, and I start laughing. And I know he looked at me like I was crazy. I remember calling you and telling you that I wish I'd taken the chair, because when we actually did the claim for the insurance, that sofa was pretty high quality, and I think it bought us a whole living room suite. So I should have taken the chair too. I got a lot of fond memories, mainly our conversations and scheming and daydreaming, trying to convince you to do things like start a pumpkin patch in South Carolina, knowing full well that I would probably never participate, but I wanted to try to convince you to do it. And you were a very smart man and didn't take the bait. So of all the time I spent in South Carolina, this 5 years, had a lot of good memories with you. I think the best part, though, of it was just our friendship and getting to know you, and still stay in touch with you today. You are a good guy, and I'm so glad that got to know you. And you are truly blessed in life, not just because you know me, but because of the other blessings like your family and stuff that you've gotten. So, Joe, I wish you a very happy birthday. Hope you have a great one. You deserve it.
So I have absolutely no idea what the significance of the buffalo is back there, but it does remind me of playing football on Sunday afternoons out in the pasture, and the time that I did throw a pinpoint pass to Alex Hudson, who then dove into a big old cow patty.
Hey, Joe Pepper. Dave and Beverly here. We just wanted to give you some memories. One of the ones I have, of course, is you invited me to the all-day Axis and Allies games. I was used to those high-speed, computer games. You kept telling me about this all-day board game that you had a bunch of guys come over for. I was very, skeptical of it, but when I got there, I loved it. I think maybe I probably asked you guys to speed up a little bit, but you tolerated that, and I know Julie had pet food for us, and it was just a great time. So that's one of my memories for sure.
And I really appreciated, Joe, you and your whole family coming to our kids' high school graduations. That was very thoughtful of you, and we really appreciated that and loved seeing you all there. And also, when Dave hurt his back, you volunteered to come over and spend the entire day raking all the leaves in our backyard. And it did take you an entire day, and I really appreciate that also.
Yeah, in fact, I think you lost your gloves, and you asked me to go find them, and I could never find them. First of all, I'm terrible finding things. And second, I hardly ever go in the backyard, but I don't even know, do we ever give them back?
We found them a year later.
Oh.
I found them.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting on the fence post where I'm sure you left them.
No, that figures.
A year later.
I may owe him a pair of gloves. I'm not really sure.
No, I mailed them to him.
Oh, okay. Well, see, this is my better half. That's why we do this together, right? It's a together thing. But Joe, you're just you're a wonderful friend of the Longs, a great Christian man, and we always wish you the best. See you later.
All right, Julie, I'm going to be honest with you. If your man, Joe Pepper, does not remember this one from the 8th grade, I'm going to be real disappointed. 2 words, Israel Bissell.
Hello, this is James Lamb coming to you from a hotel room in Nashville, Tennessee. Used to be a next door neighbor of the one and only, the living legend, Joe Pepper. Julie sent me a message and wanted to know would I record a funny story about Joe, and I agreed to. One of the problems I had was coming up with a funny story about Joe, because there are just so many. I knew Joe from the time I started working at Milliken, and then about 7 years later I moved in across the street from him. I bought a house that the Crazy Brit owned before me, and it had way too many trees in the front yard. And I'll never forget, I was talking about sawing them down or something like that, and Joe said, "Hey, I'm renting a Bobcat. Why don't we pull the trees up?" I said, "Joe, what are we renting a Bobcat for?" He said, "Well, I'm going to do some work in the backyard." I said, "Okay, fantastic. Well, let's tear some trees up in my front yard then." So one of the first adventures Joe and I had as neighbors was to tear up trees in my front yard. And let me tell you, it was an experience. We had a lot of fun. We didn't break anything, and I don't know how we did it, but we didn't tear up any plumbing or wiring either that happened to be buried under the front yard. Another funny remembrance I have is the time that me and him tried to carry a couch up his stairs to a bonus room for the kids to play on or sit on or whatever. The couch, best I can remember, would not fit through the door unless we stood it upright, twisted it, or something. I don't remember, but what I do remember is it about killed us both to get the thing through the door once we got it up the stairs. But I don't think that was nearly as bad as the time Joe ran across an old school picture tube TV that he had me help carry up the stairs. And I think we would have both had an easier time if somebody had said, "Why don't you carry this pickup truck up the stairs?" At least we would have known better than to do it, but he and I set forth to do it, and the thing had to have weighed 150 pounds. I don't know what it weighed. It was ridiculously heavy. Another story I love about Joe, I don't know that I ever really heard firsthand without just having to push Joe to tell it, and that was how he bought some unlabeled cans of food when his twins were very young, and when he got them home, opened them up, come to find out that they were spicy cactus. So Joe fed the kids spicy cactus, and I understand Julie finally made him put a stop to that. You'd have to ask her for more details. I guess the stories that I guess best describe Joe, to me anyway, are the ones where Joe's out trying to find a bargain. Now, I don't know if he's still doing it or not, but at the time that he was living across the street from me, he would go around to the grocery stores and find when things like eggs or orange juice or something like that was about to expire, and then the day that they were going to expire, he would go late at night and ask if they would discount the entire lot that they had, and he would buy them and take them off their hands. Otherwise, they were going to have to throw them out the next day. So there was many a night at 10 or 10:30, I'd get a call from Joe that says, "Hey James, how much room you got in that fridge in your garage? I bought 25 jugs of orange juice and I need somewhere to put it." I said, "Joe, why'd you buy 25 jugs of orange juice? Who needs that?" But Joe would get it, and he and Julie and the kids, I guess, drank orange juice for the next little while. But old Joe, he loved a good bargain. But by no means was he cheap or anything. I think he just enjoyed the hunt of the bargain. Joe is the kind of man that would give you the shirt off his back, go into his closet, dig up some more shirts, and give them to you. I also know for a fact that if you say you need a bucket, Joe will give you about 75 buckets that he has crammed in his backyard for some unknown reason. I don't think he ever walked by a bakery in a grocery store that he didn't stop and ask him for buckets. So one day I said, "Joe, I need a bucket," and I ended up with 75 of the things. But anyway, there's lots of funny stories that come to mind. I don't know that I did a great job telling any of these, but Joe's been a good friend. He was a good neighbor, and I hear he's got a big birthday coming up. So Joe, happy birthday. Congratulations, my friend, and we will see you soon. Bye.